Usually when we talk about a high-stakes financial market, you immediately picture Wall Street, right?
Right, yeah. Ticker tapes, algorithms, traders in suits yelling across the floor.
Exactly. But there is a completely different kind of, global stock exchange happening right now in real time. And instead of trading shares of tech companies or commodities, they are literally trading human beings in cleats.
Yeah, the global football transfer market. And honestly, it operates with a level of interconnected chaos that, it makes traditional stock trading look pretty simple, to be honest.
Oh, I bet.
Because we're talking about human capital moving across borders, carrying these, multi-million-dollar valuations that can fluctuate based on a single twisted ankle or just a really good weekend performance.
Look, it's wild. Welcome back to the Deep Dive, everybody. So before we jump into the really complex mechanics of today's topic, do me a quick favor. If you love these knowledge shortcuts, please hit that like button, share this with a friend who loves sports or finance, and make sure you subscribe.
Yeah, it really helps us out.
It does. It keeps the deep dives coming. And today, I got to tell you, our mission is an absolute mammoth task. We're looking at this massive, completely unfiltered stack of global football transfer intelligence.
It is a mountain of data.
A mountain. We are talking about 31 distinct moves, rumors, and absolute blockbusters. And I'm giving you a guarantee right now, we're unpacking every single piece of news from our source file today. No stone left unturned.
Love it.
So to kick us off, how do you even begin to make sense of this crazy web of multi-million-dollar deals? Like, do you just pick a random country and start there?
No, you really can't do that. You have to start by finding the gravitational pull in the market.
Okay, the gravitational pull.
Right. To understand a sprawling ecosystem like this, you don't look at the small trades first. You have to follow the heaviest hitters because they dictate the tempo. When they move, the rest of the market is just, forced to react. And right now, that center of gravity is firmly in Paris.
Paris Saint-Germain, which makes sense. Looking at this data, my first thought was that PSG looks like a high roller at a casino playing like 5 roulette tables at the exact same time.
That's certainly how it looks on the surface.
Right. But I'm starting to think it's more like a really surgical corporate restructuring.
Yeah.
Like, let's just look at their board. First, they're relentlessly tempting Barcelona's Ferran Torres to move, even though Barca is desperately trying to get him to sign a new deal.
Yeah, they're really pushing there.
And then they pivot all the way to Italy and offer 33 million euros to Parma for Zion Suzuki, the Japanese national team goalkeeper. Next, they jump over to the Netherlands and drop a 40 million euro offer to Ajax for the young Belgian winger Mika Godts.
And that Godts negotiation, that is a perfect example of market tension. The player has actually already agreed to personal terms with Paris.
Oh, well, really?
Yeah, but Ajax is standing firm. They're demanding 60 million euros. So it's this classic staring contest where neither side wants to blink, but, both sides know the player's head has already been turned.
It's just crazy money. But while they're attempting to buy all these new pieces, they are also clearing out major space.
That's huge space.
Yeah. Randal Kolo Muani has officially left PSG. He's heading over to Juventus permanently. And let's just break down these numbers because they are substantial. We're talking a 38 million euro base fee plus 12 million euros in add-ons.
Yeah.
And he's locked in until June 2031, making 5 million euros a season. I mean, I have to wonder, is PSG just flipping assets here? Like, sell a late prime asset to fund 2 early stage ones.
You've hit the nail right on the head. When PSG sells Kolo Muani for a potential 50 million euros total package, they aren't just getting the transfer cash. They instantly free up a massive portion of their wage.
Well, right, the 5 million a year.
Exactly, that 5 million a year he was going to make. That capital immediately becomes the ammunition for the offers on Suzuki and Arcarets. They're basically reshaping their entire age profile, moving away from these late prime superstars and trying to secure the next generation before their valuations absolutely peak.
Which brings us perfectly to the goalkeeper situation you just mentioned with Zion Suzuki. Right, a 33 million euro bid is a really hefty chunk of change for a keeper.
It is.
But here is where it gets super interesting for anyone following the mechanics of this market. When one goalkeeper moves, it sets off this wild domino effect across the whole continent. It literally reminds me of one of those sliding tile puzzles.
Oh, I love that analogy.
You can't move a single piece until an empty space opens up, and the second it does, every other piece frantically shifts to fill the void.
That is exactly what happens. Goalkeeper is, it's the most specialized position on the pitch. You only need one starter. You almost never rotate them. So when a seat opens up at a major club, The musical chairs begin instantly across multiple leagues.
Okay, so let's trace one of these domino effects.
Yeah.
Look at Peter Gulácsi. He is moving from RB Leipzig to Villarreal for 2 million euros.
Right.
And because he leaves that empty space, RB Leipzig is now one step away from officially signing Norwegian goalkeeper Orjan Nyland to replace him.
Yep. The puzzle pieces shift.
Yeah. Exactly. But then you look over at the Premier League, and Newcastle United is dropping some very heavy cash. They just secured the Czech goalkeeper Lukas Hornacek from Braga for £25 million, and that's on a contract running all the way to June 2031.
It's a massive deal.
Wait, you got to help me unpack this pricing model. Why is an established, proven veteran like Gulácsi going for just 2 million euros, while Newcastle is dropping £25 million on Hornacek? Like, is the premium on youth really worth a £23 million difference?
Honestly, yes. It comes down to risk management versus immediate needs and how clubs view depreciating assets. Villarreal is buying a short-term fix to just stop the bleeding in their defense.
Okay.
Gulácsi is an established veteran. They know exactly what they're getting, but he has zero resale value at his age.
Yeah.
The €2 million fee reflects that he's essentially just a rental. Newcastle, on the other hand, they're buying a decade of stability. They are paying for Hornacek's potential curve.
So they're banking on the fact that if he locks down that position until 2031, they won't have to spend another dime on a goalkeeper for 7 years.
Precisely. If you amortize that $25 million over a 7-year contract, it's actually a remarkably cheap yearly investment for a Premier League side, provided, of course, that he maintains his form.
Wow. And that structural long-term thinking, it really seems to be catching fire in the Premier League. Newcastle isn't the only team remodeling their house right now.
Far from it.
Arsenal just sold midfielder Christian Norgard to Everton for £7 million. And according to our sources, that specific sale is the domino fueling rumors that Bruno Guimarães is edging closer to joining Arsenal. They're deliberately clearing midfield space and balancing the books to make room for a much bigger piece.
Which is just the harsh reality of modern squad building under current financial regulations. You can't just add to your roster indefinitely. You must subtract to balance the ecosystem and ensure your wage-to-revenue ratios stay compliant.
It's all just accounting at the end of the day. And then you have Bournemouth quietly executing some brilliant under-the-radar business while all the big clubs fight over the headlines.
They've been very smart.
Very smart. They just acquired right back Juan Lu from Sevilla for 11 million euros plus 2 million in add-ons. Then they went out and got a highly rated young Portuguese center back, Antonio Silva from Benfica, for 25 million euros plus 5 million in add-ons. They are completely rebuilding their defensive structure.
Yeah, setting themselves up for the next 5 years.
But if we're talking about structural moves, we absolutely have to talk about Chelsea. If you're wondering why a team would ever offer an almost decade-long contract, you need to listen to this. Chelsea just locked down striker João Pedro with an extension that runs all the way until June 2033.
Unbelievable.
I mean, I need you to explain this to me like I'm 5. Are they just kicking massive financial risk down the road, or is there some brilliant accounting trick here that I'm just completely missing?
It is entirely an accounting strategy.
Wow.
Specifically, it deals with amortization. Think of it like financing a car, right?
Oh, damn.
If you buy a car for $50,000 and you pay it off over 2 years, your monthly payment is going to be huge. But if you finance that same exact car over 10 years, the monthly payment drops significantly, even though the total cost is the exact same. In football, transfer fees and wages are spread across the length of the contract on the club's financial ledgers.
Okay, so by stretching João Pedro's contract all the way until 2033, Chelsea takes his salary and any associated transfer values and basically spreads them incredibly thin across their annual reports.
Exactly.
It just gives them immediate breathing room to comply with the league's spending rules this year.
Correct. However, I gotta say, the risk is immense. If João Pedro suffers a career-altering injury or, just loses his form in 3 years, Chelsea is legally obligated to pay a massive salary for another 6 years to a player they can't utilize and really can't easily sell. It is an immense gamble on human durability.
Wow. And gambling on unproven commodities, that actually seems to be the defining theme of this specific transfer window. Like, while Chelsea is locking up current talent until 2033, other clubs globally are just rolling the dice on raw teenagers.
Yeah, the youth movement is very real right now.
Look at Hull City. They just took a huge swing, signing 18-year-old Australian defender Lucas Harrington from the Colorado Rapids. The numbers are crazy. $17 million plus $6 million in add-ons and a 15% future sale profit clause.
That's huge money for an 18-year-old.
Right. And Brighton is doing it too. They deal with the loss of veteran Danny Welbeck and their immediate pivot. They signed 18-year-old English striker Valentin Joseph from Blackburn Rovers.
It's a complete paradigm shift across the entire sport. I mean, you also see RC Strasbourg securing U.S. attacking midfielder Gio Reyna from Borussia Mönchengladbach for just €3 million on a 5-year deal. And Real Oviedo officially signing Astanis Pedrola permanently from Sampdoria on a 4-year deal. The market for established prime-age stars has just become so prohibitively expensive that clubs are attempting to bypass that stage entirely.
It feels exactly like venture capitalism in Silicon Valley to me.
That's a great comparison.
Like, if I'm a club, I buy 5 18-year-olds for $20 million each. I know that 3 of them might completely flop and 1 will maybe just break even. But if that 5th teenager turns into a world-class talent by age 21, his market value jumps to $100 million.
Exactly.
That one massive sale covers all the losses of the others and funds my next cycle of youth purchases. They aren't just buying football players anymore. They are buying highly volatile financial assets.
That is a very, very accurate way to look at it. The scouting departments are essentially acting as risk assessment analysts for these venture capital firms. Football clubs.
Right, exactly. But, not every club has the luxury of waiting 4 years for a teenager to develop. When you look at the rest of mainland Europe, La Liga, Serie A, the Bundesliga, it is a completely different story.
Very different.
It's all about tactical, immediate impact shifts to plug active leaks. For instance, Bayer Leverkusen just bought Napoli's Miguel Gutierrez, a left back, for €30 million.
Yeah.
And why? Because their star left back, Grimaldo, just departed for Atletico Madrid. One leaves, the replacement is bought instantly. They literally don't have time to develop an 18-year-old.
Exactly. You see Eintracht Frankfurt making similar immediate impact moves too. They just bought Nigerian midfielder Rafael Nyadika from Club Brugge for €10 million. They need someone who can step into the starting 11 tomorrow.
Yeah, we see this urgency all over the continent. Over in Italy, Como is closing in on Dortmund's right back, Jan Couto. They're currently just haggling over the final transfer fee there. Rayo Vallecano in Spain is nearing a loan deal for AS Roma center back Mirash Kumbula. Sassuolo is trying to buy Sheffield United's right back Femi Siriki for €1 million plus $5 million in add-ons.
Just constant movement.
Constant. Real Sociedad is chasing Wolves defender Ladislav Krejci, though our notes actually say Wolves rejected their opening proposal. But wait, hold on. Out of all these European moves, there is one that I really need you to clarify for me because it seems to defy logic.
Okay, shoot.
Julian Brandt is going to Ajax on a free transfer.
Yeah.
He just walked away from Dortmund and signed with Ajax until June 2029. Dortmund isn't stupid.
Yeah.
How do you just let a prime asset walk out the door for absolutely zero return?
Yeah.
They must have seen his contract expiring.
Oh, they definitely did. But this highlights a massive shift in player power right now. Players, and especially their agents, have realized that if they simply refuse to sign a contract extension and just let their current deal run out, they hold all the leverage.
Really?
Yeah. Dortmund likely offered him a new deal months ago. If Brandt says no, Dortmund's only options are to sell him at a really steep discount with just 6 months left on his deal, or just hope he changes his mind.
Wow. So by waiting it out, Brandt becomes a free agent. And because Ajax didn't have to pay Dortmund a 40 or 50 million euro transfer fee, they can take a chunk of that saved money and just give it directly to Brandt as a massive signing bonus.
Precisely. The player gets richer, the buying club gets a total bargain, and the selling club is left completely empty-handed. It is a calculated power play.
That is ruthless. Which I guess perfectly sets up the final piece of this puzzle. If you can't get a player to extend, or if a player isn't working out, you have to clear house before you lose them for nothing. And the exit lounge in our data stack today is completely overflowing.
It really is.
Let's start with the heavy-handed approach. Bayern Munich has publicly transfer listed João Palhinha, Brian Zaragoza, and Sacha Boey. They have explicitly told them to find new clubs. Now, if my boss publicly tweeted that I needed to find a new job, I'd be furious. Doesn't announcing this publicly completely tank Bayern's negotiating leverage?
Normally, yes, absolutely. Clubs try to keep these things quiet to protect the player's perceived market value. But by announcing it publicly, Bayern is signaling 2 major things. First, that the internal relationship is completely broken, and second, that they are just desperate to shed the wages. They're essentially telling the rest of Europe, look, we will accept lower transfer fees just to get these salaries off our books. It's a distress signal.
Wow. And it isn't just clubs pushing players out either. We have players actively agitating to leave. Jadon Philogene just told Ipswich Town he wants out, and right now Fiorentina, along with some unnamed German and Spanish clubs, are circling.
Yep, lots of interest there.
Facundo Buonanotte wants to leave Brighton, which is drawing interest from Schalke 04 and other Premier League and La Liga clubs. And Ezequiel Palacios has options to leave Bayer Leverkusen, with both Ipswich Town and RB Leipzig highly interested. Like, what is going on here?
What you are seeing here is the reality of squad bloat. Teams stockpile talent, promising playing time they simply can't deliver to everyone. When a player realizes they're just an insurance policy sitting on the bench, they agitate to leave. They have to protect their own career trajectory.
That makes total sense.
Yeah.
And when a permanent sale can't be agreed upon, clubs turn to the loan market, which is getting incredibly complex. Like, it's not just borrowing a player anymore. Look at Glenn Kamara. He joins QPR on loan from Rennes, but with a permanent option attached.
Right.
And then you have Charlie Cresswell leaving Toulouse for Rennes on a loan that literally requires a calculator to understand. It's a 2.5 million euro loan fee, a 22.5 million euro buy option, plus 3 million in add-ons, and a 10% future sale clause. I mean, why are they structuring a loan like a Fortune 500 corporate merger?
It is all about deferring risk. Think of it as an expensive test drive. Rennes isn't entirely sure if Cresswell will adapt to their tactical system, right?
Right.
So they pay a small premium now, the 2.5 million, to bring him in for a year. If he's brilliant and fits perfectly, they have a pre-negotiated price of 22.5 million locked in, regardless of how much his open market value might have jumped in that year.
Oh, and if he struggles, they just send him back at the end of the year without being tied to a massive long-term contract.
Exactly.
And the future sale clauses and add-ons are just sweeteners to convince Toulouse to agree to the test drive in the first place.
Exactly. It's purely financial hedging.
It is absolutely fascinating. And, you know, this entire ecosystem, it doesn't just stop in Europe. It ripples outward globally.
Yeah.
We saw Moroccan player Abdelhamid Sabiri join Turkish side Eyüpspor on a free transfer for 2 years after leaving Fiorentina. Off the pitch, the managerial carousel is spinning just as fast. Emers Faye is leaving his post as the Ivory Coast head coach after his contract wasn't renewed. And then you look at Saudi Arabia. Ali is actively targeting major names like Xavi and Marcelino for their managerial role, even though our sources do say no deal is close yet. The sheer scale of this machinery is breathtaking.
It truly is. I mean, we just tracked a web that connects an 18-year-old in Colorado to a boardroom in Hull, a domino effect of goalkeepers across 3 different countries, and free agency power plays shifting millions of euros in wages across the continent.
Well, we did it. We promised you we would unpack every single piece of news from that source file, and we hit all 31 distinct moves.
You got them all.
We proved that the global football ecosystem is a constantly churning machine. But if you're listening to this, even if you aren't a diehard sports fan, this stuff really matters.
It does. It perfectly illustrates the intense financial interconnectedness of global markets today. I mean, a decision made in a boardroom in Paris to sell a striker triggers a wage reduction, which funds an offer in Italy, which might eventually fund a youth purchase in Australia. It is a live, breathing economic ecosystem where human capital is the currency.
Which leaves me with one final thought I really want you to mull over. We spent all this time talking about these players as assets, right?
Yeah.
As amortized numbers on a spreadsheet to balance the books. But when an 18-year-old kid is sold for $17 million and shipped across the globe, totally away from his family, what kind of psychological pressure does that place on human development versus financial asset management?
Yeah.
At what point does the actual human being get lost in the ticker tape? Something to think about. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We will catch you on the next one.